Okay, so the focus activities will be due tomorrow. If you want to turn those in before you leave today at the end, got no problem with that. But you should have 2 to this point, now 3. If you have lost or misplaced the other ones, there should, keyword should, be some extra copies over here by the broken pencil sharpener. So I thought, let's go ahead and kind of look at the characteristics of a quadratic again. Find all the given information, then graph the parabola. Use factoring to find the zeros of the function. So we have 4x squared minus 8x minus 5. Okay, so a couple things we can already tell just by looking at it. Would it open up or down? Up, because the leading coefficient is positive. What's the y-intercept? -5. Remember, that c in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c, that c is always your y-intercept. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can go ahead and get that. And for my y-intercept, remember, we always want to write that as an ordered pair because it's a location. We don't want to say, it's -5. Okay. So we want to find the vertex, axis of symmetry, typically what's called AOS, the domain range, and then the zeros. And remember, there's a lot of different words they could use here, a lot of synonyms. Besides zeros, they could use roots. What else could they use? Same as answers, but it starts with an S. Solutions. Or the most obvious one, what kind of intercept? X-intercept. Okay, so all 4 of those are synonymous with each other. Where does the graph cross the x-axis? Okay, does anybody remember the other day, maybe the week before, I can't remember, when we were talking about the vertex? What's that little expression that will help me determine the x value of where the max or min occurs? -b over 2a, yes. Okay, so this is going to be the vertex. It's the opposite of b divided by 2a. And then if I take that value and plug it into the function, that's going to give me my vertex. There's also another way we could complete the square and show that as well. If anybody wants to, we can do that. How long has it been since a lot of folks in here completed the square? I really don't think that's going to show up on the paper exams unless you want to use it, but probably better off without it. So here is A, here's B, and here's C. So let's see, the opposite of B divided by 2A. So right now B is a -8. So the opposite of a -8 divided by 2 times A. 2 times 4. What am I looking at here? 1. 8 divided by 8. Okay. So I know in my vertex, what are we dealing with here? A maximum or a minimum? A minimum. Okay, that's the y value of your vertex of a quadratic. But because it opens up, that means the minimum is going to be the range value. So let's go ahead and figure out what that is. I'm now going to take this 1, and I'm going to plug it in my function everywhere I have an x. So 4x squared becomes 1 squared, minus 8x, minus 8 times 1, and then minus 5. So let's see, 4 times 1 squared? 4. Okay, because the 1 has the square. Okay, minus 8 times 1, 8, minus 5. Okay, so it's going to be -9. All right, so the vertex is at 1, -9. So I'll be right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll just make sure. Okay. And now we just got to figure out what my roots are. In fact, using this vertex, we have our axis of symmetry. That's a line that goes all the way through the middle of the parabola. You can fold it in half and it comes together perfectly. So what's the equation of that vertical line right there? X equals 1. Because it's an equation, we always want to write it as such. X equals. If the parabola opens left or right, then we would say y equals. Okay. If it opens diagonally, then we would have y equals mx plus b. Has anybody ever worked with rotational conics? Like you've probably seen the parabolas that'll open up, down, left, and right, but has anybody ever worked with one, a rotation? So he did show you those? Nice, okay. All right. That isn't something we are not going to be doing in here. We're going to do some trig in here, but we won't be doing that. Okay. All right. So in order to get the domain and range, we want a graph, and to get the graph, I would say let's get the zeros. Okay, so 4x squared minus 8x minus 5. Okay, so we're looking to factor this guy. And what's the method I really like to use?
My father drives a red Mercedes.
Yeah, my father drives a red Mercedes convertible. Okay, so Michelle, what two numbers will I multiply first?
The 4 and the 5.
Okay, now we don't want to forget that it's negative. So 4 times negative 5 will give me negative 20. Because it's negative, whatever two factors I'm looking for, one's positive, one's a negative. But they have to add to give me negative 8. Zoe, can you help me out with this one? So what two numbers can multiply to give me negative 20, turn around and add to give me negative 8? Ten and 2. Okay, but which one's which? 2 is the positive. So negative 10, positive 2, is she right? There you go. My hints are very subtle. Okay. Now, why wouldn't negative 2 and 10 work? That's still negative 20. Positive 8. Signs are very, very, very important here. Okay, so I've multiplied. We factored. What's that D stand for? Divide, but we always divide by the leading coefficient. What is a negative 10 fourths? Negative 5 halves. We're going to reduce it. 2 fourths would be 1 half. And now we want to go ahead and rewrite those. Okay. So is this negative 5x plus 2 or 2x minus 5? 2x minus 5. Remember, we always start in the denominator and work our way up. So 2x minus 5. So this one will be 2x plus 1. Now, we're looking for the roots. So I'm going to go back and say this is equal to 0. Because what property am I going to use? And there's actually something I'm going to show you. Some people may have picked up on it, but I don't think I've ever mentioned it when we talked about this before. If I say 2x minus 5 is equal to 0, I'm going to add the 5 and divide by 2, so x equals what? 5 over 2. If I say 2x plus 1 is equal to 0, subtract the 1, divide by 2, negative 1 half. So these are my locations. But can anybody tell me what am I referring to a second ago? Does anybody notice it in my work? And this happens every single time. Exactly right. If all you're looking for are your roots, you're not looking for the group factors. Whatever ratios you have right here, if you simply change their signs, those are your roots. It'll happen every single time. Okay. If you go back and look at some of the other problems, that's going to be happening as well. Did anybody notice that? Okay, FIFA? Okay. All right. Well, 5 halves is 2.5. So 1, 2.5. And then what was the other one? A negative 1 half? Okay. And you'll notice, are these points equal distance from your AOS? Yeah. Okay. So I've got more than enough points here to go ahead and graph it. If you want to make it a little easier, you can take this y-intercept and reflect him over. Okay, you don't have to. But this is what we should be ending up with. That would be the parabola for 4x squared minus 8x minus 5. Okay, so my zeros, what was this? Negative 1 half, 0, and then it was 5 halves, 0. Okay, now you remember, again, a while back, this was something that was more brought up and used in algebra. We brought it up in here recently. Interval notation. Do you guys remember that? What were the two symbols we used with interval notation? Well, that could be part of it, but I'm talking about how to cap it. How we knew if the value was going to be included or not included. Bracket and the parentheses, right? Okay, so what's the domain, Sydney, of this parabola? How wide is it? Negative 2 to 2? No. Okay, Eli, can you help her out? It's all reals. Because remember, what's this parabola wanting to do the higher he goes? He wants to continue to widen, so he's going to widen forever. It's going to take a while, yeah, but he's going to get there. So I would say negative infinity to infinity, or all reals is perfectly fine. Okay. Let's see. Evelyn, what's the range? No, now it does go up to positive infinity, but it does not go down all the way. So in fact, where's it stop? Negative 9. Will the negative 9 be included? Yes. So I'm going to put the bracket negative 9 to infinity. Or you could say all y greater than or equal to negative 9. Okay, whatever you like. All right. Did anybody happen to have the entire slip filled out before we started? Good, 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 good. Portion of it? Okay. All right. If we look back over our notes, will Parabola remember this? No? That one was better than the pork chop joke I made, yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's really sad. All right, so I'll tell you what, that went a little longer than I expected it to. Would you like to at least take a look at the compound and simple interest, or wait till tomorrow? Tomorrow, okay. So we've got about 5 minutes. All right, John, if you would turn on that light